Hello, I am Ismail Raffles and I am presenting a paper that is based on a project called Steering Research and Innovation for Global Goals, which is led by the Science Policy Research Unit at the University of Sussex, and in which we, Ismail Raffles and Edna Jones, are contributing from the Centre for Science and Technology Studies from Leiden University. In collaboration with our friends from SPRU at Sussex, Hugo Confraria and Tommaso Charli. I will start by presenting a summary of the paper. In the face of the growing interest in research that addresses societal problems, in particular societal problems as framed around sustainable development goals, science mapping has found useful in order to illustrate what are the de facto priorities. So with bibliometric methods we can see what are the key issues regarding a given sustainable development goal or a given societal problem such as climate change that are being published. These types of studies are problematic in various respects. For example, we have to decide which type of data we use. If we use bibliometric data from a certain database, we might be biasing our analysis because it does not have sufficient coverage of certain countries or certain disciplines. But the issue that we will tackle today is the problems associated with the definitions or understandings of sustainable development goals. Sustainable development goals are very widely defined in policy. And by looking at the research which is related to these goals, we might see that little attention is paid in terms of research to some of the issues that are highlighted by sustainable development goals. Now, the key finding of this presentation is that the mapping of research in terms of sustainable development goals is highly problematic. In many reports by bibliometricians previously, it had been assumed that you could tag publications to a given sustainable development goals. But as we'll see in this presentation, we built on the paper by Armitage at Bergen University, which shows that this might lead to serious disagreements, and we discuss why. So the mapping is problematic in the sense that there is uncertainty and ambiguity in the meaning of sustainable development goals, and this translates in which papers are included or not. It also is problematic in the sense that for a given sustainable development goal, let's say health, there might be different areas which can be focused. You can say SDG 3, which is about health. You could focus more on cancer research, or you could focus more on malaria research. So there is a plurality of choices that reveal the underlying values of those carrying out the research, as well as the particular interest or the political economy which shapes the research priorities. It is widely perceived and discussed that there is a mismatch between current research priorities and societal needs across many areas. Sustainable development goals can be seen as a lens in which you could be used in order to help improve the alignment of research with societal needs. And therefore, there are many organizations currently which are asking themselves if their research is aligned with SDG as a way of reflecting to which extent they are contributing to addressing societal needs. This has led to a flurry of initiative to show how research addresses SDG. So since 2019, there is the Times Higher Education University ranking, in which universities are ranked according to the extent which they align, where they are carrying out research on certain sustainable development goals. There's work by consultancies such as Cities Academic, which analyzes EU funding with SDG lens. The Association of Dutch Universities has also provided a dashboard. And in this context, we are carrying out a project, Strings, for the UK Research and Innovation and the United Nations Development Programme, aiming to map how publications are related to SDGs and how research in general contributes to sustainable development goals. Now, the question that I would pose here is whether it does really make sense to assume that we can univocally tag publications as being related or not to sustainable development goals. As I was mentioning, there are all these initiatives which are assuming, as it is posed in this letter to Nature, that one could tag research publications according to the alignment to the SDGs and the 169 targets within them, and that this would be useful in order to see whether universities are addressing these goals. A very important paper, in my view, was the one published in 2020 by Armitage, Lawrence and Mickey from the University of Bergen, in which they compared their definition of SDGs and the publications they retrieved with that definition with the publications retrieved by using an Elsevier approach. And what they found is a striking degree of disagreement. We know that delineating policy-related concepts such as nanotechnology, such as biotechnology, is always open to debate, and that there is a range of disagreement between experts in deciding which publications are nanotechnology or not, and which publications are biotechnology or not. Now, in the case of sustainable development goals, the degree of disagreement is strikingly high. According to Armitage, and Lawrence and me, this overlap between two approaches at most is as high as 50% for sustainable development goal number 3, which is health. But for most SDGs, the degree of agreement is below 30%. Now, with such low degree of agreement, and we have corroborated comparing other approaches that this is not just a comparison between the Bergen approach and the Elsevier approach, we found the same degree of disagreement between Elsevier, cities, and other approaches. With such high degree of disagreement, the very notion that you can make a meaningful mapping is questionable. So one wonders, why is this happening? And the reason why this is happening, I believe, is because the SDGs do not speak in scientific terms. SDGs are about policy goals, and they can be interpreted in different ways. For example, let's take target 3.3 by 2030, end of epidemics, tuberculosis, malaria, and neglected tropical diseases. Okay, so malaria, tropical disease, to which extent they cover different terms. So we have one approach, Aurora, in which covers malaria, tropical disease, and Zika. Another approach by the consultancy cities also includes mosquito control and Anopheles. Now you see that Zika is indeed a tropical disease, but these searches do not include dengue, which is also a very important tropical disease. So where do you draw the limit? Why not influenza? Another issue that is problematic is the fact that the research that is captured within an SDG might not be perceived as being the most pressingly needed. For example, in SDG 3, according to the Elsevier report, the most important SDG terms happen to be cancer-related, neoplasm, breast cancer, stomach cancer, lung cancer, colorectal cancer, liver cell carcinoma. But these are all diseases of rich countries. So there is problems because of the ambiguity of how research is related to sustainable development goals and how different strands of research should be prioritized. In order to deal with the issue of ambiguity in strings, what we propose is a visual interface so that this visual interface allows the users to decide what they consider to be part of the SDG or not, rather than deciding for ourselves. So what we do, we take the 4,000 clusters in which the Web of Science is divided in the CWTS database, and then, using keywords, we propose the clusters which are potentially related with a given sustainable development goals. So in this case, you see a slide of energy research, sustainable development goal 7, in which, according to search strings, we find these 50 to 100 clusters which are potentially related. And our proposal is that rather than making the choice ourselves, we would present this portfolio of potential clusters to users so that they inspect which ones are relevant according to their understanding, views, and local context. So, in the face of the growing interest of SDGs, given the problematic nature of traditional delineation approaches which hide the plurality of choices and the uncertainty, what we are trying to develop is a tool which allows users to define themselves what type of research they consider to be included or not as Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you for your attention.